telling you, those craft chocolate bars are not gonna be as creamy as they used to, and maybe it's for the better. I don't know. In my mind, there have always been three schools of thought when it comes to added cocoa butter in craft chocolate, in dark chocolate, and I'm talking just about the bars, not the bonbons, not the dragées, not other creations, just the bars. So there are the purists, so the two ingredient evangelist, only cacao beans and sugar, no added cacao butter shall interfere with the natural aromas of the single origin cacao, so the flavor is the protagonist. Texture, not as important. On the opposite side, there is what I usually call French style kind of chocolate, but that might be unjust because not all French and not only the French, but I'm talking about when in the chocolate there's so much added cocoa butter that the texture goes way beyond creamy and it starts to become buttery. The cacao flavors start to get very diluted, very weak. So, these two extremes, no added cocoa butter, shit ton of added cocoa butter. And then there are the moderates, I don't even know if that's an English word, who do add cocoa butter, but just a light, 3-4%, just to make the machines flow better, just to give that tad bit of extra creaminess without interfering too much with the cocoa flavors. So a good balance between texture and flavor. Well, with the cocoa prices skyrocketing since, I believe, 2022, also the price of cocoa butter has skyrocketed since then. And I believe that this led to a big change in how craft chocolate makers are crafting their chocolate bars right now. Let me explain. I remember not too long ago that craft chocolate makers were desperate for cocoa butter. There was a big shortage and professionals were willing to pay a lot of money for cocoa butter if they found it because it was equally hard to put your hands on the single origin undeodorized fancy schmancy specialty cocoa butter as it was to put your hands on the industrial deodorized super processed no origin declared kind of crappy cocoa butter because they became equally expensive. Chocolate makers would stock up, they would ask anybody around if they knew a supplier. It was like a Wild West. But what I'm noticing now is that craft bean to bar chocolate makers, after all this rush and preoccupation, almost started to learn how to do without added cocoa butter. Talking directly to my chocolate makers friends around the world, I love them so much because they give me all the direct, juicy info and insights you don't read on the news. Those who never used cocoa butter kept not using cocoa butter, but there were those that used to use it and then they were like, I don't really use it anymore. I just learned to run my machines without. I only use a tiny bit when it's strictly necessary. Perhaps when the cacao beans are really on the low cocoa butter content side of things, I'd say 40 to 45% rather than the fatty 50-55% content. So what I'm tasting on the market, what I see in the labs, what I hear around industry voices is a lot more dark chocolate made without added cocoa butter, just plain two ingredient. Maybe it's not even advertised that way, but inside the packaging, no added cocoa butter to be found. And it's interesting to see that while the mass-produced industrial big chocolate brands just substitute cocoa butter with their creepy oily alternatives, craft chocolate makers just learn to do without, to tweak things around, to get creative. And I personally don't mind the switch. I love the pure taste of cacao. Geez, I even love to munch on untempered, unconched, all the sorts of unrefined chocolate I can put my hands on. And buttery textures aren't really my thing. I love velvety texture, but not creamy and buttery. If you're a craft chocolate nerd, you know what I mean. So I might be a little biased, but let's be honest, the more cocoa butter you add to the chocolate, the less you're gonna feel the most delicate cocoa flavors. And that's totally fine. I mean, there's definitely a balance between texture and flavor that craft chocolate makers can reach. And oh my God, consumers love creamy textures, but the trend is to go a little less creamy than before. And at the same time, I'm also noticing less production of milk and white chocolate. Let me know in the comments if you feel the same. I mean, milk chocolate has never really been the best seller for craft chocolate makers, but there was a time when white chocolate with inclusions, with crunchy inclusion, flavorful, it would give the white chocolate that twist, would like sell out everywhere. But now it seems like we are going towards a health conscious chocolate wave again, like in 2017. Hopefully raw chocolate never makes its way back to us, but I'm hearing of chocolate consumers buying roasted cacao beans to be snacked on the spot, like shelled on the spot, which was pretty unheard of, like people munching on cacao beans. I don't even know if I would go that far. So a whole new wave of appreciation for more unprocessed kind of chocolate, which also includes no added cocoa butter. The milk and white chocolate still going strong. I see it's dairy-free and vegan plant-based chocolate, but I would say that is included in the health-conscious category, or at least there are other reasons for consumers to buy that kind of chocolate other than just its deliciousness. So it's kind of a topic aside, it has its own reason to sell out. A popular way in which craft chocolate makers are still using cacao butter, though, is infusions. Oh my god, they're having so much fun and experimenting. If you don't know what I'm talking about, chocolate makers would just put an ingredient inside the cocoa butter, let it bath and marinate for days, weeks, even months sometimes. I don't know if about months, no, maybe the cocoa butter oxidized for that time, but definitely some days and a week or so. Then they would take the ingredient out and use that cocoa butter as a mean of transportation for the flavors of the ingredient. You can do that with flowers, spices, coffee, tea, whatever you want. Of course, it's a more delicate inclusion compared to a powder or an essential oil that you add to the cocoa mass. In conclusion, I'm noticing less cocoa butter in the lab of craft bean to white chocolate makers. Let me know in the comments if you feel the same. Do you feel that we are going towards chocolate products that really have cacao flavors as the sole protagonist? Or is that creamy, luscious texture still very important in chocolate? And while you answer that in the comment, I'm just gonna go prepare the next video where I'll tell you even more insights in the chocolate industry. Bye, see you soon!